3 weeks ago, there was a price prediction by somebody who absolutely got things right about the pandemic and how it would shape out and the different things that would happen. The prediction was that Bitcoin would go to $1 million in the coming months. I still don't know that that's the case. That would be amazing. But it's definitely true that some things are happening with the US dollar and some things are happening in the crypto space. Now, how far it goes, I don't know, but I'm excited to find out. So we're going to take a look at some of the majors in crypto, Bitcoin and ETH, as well as some other altcoins, and see what's going on with Paul from Definity joining us today. Welcome to the Crypto Rain channel. I'm your host, Jay Rain, and if you like money in crypto and you're looking for a seasoned investor's take on the crypto market, join the Rainmaker family. Do note, I'm not a financial advisor. I'm a crypto investor myself. We do have a private Patreon that allows people access to our private Discord. And there we have a lot of extra interaction with a very great community, and I interact a lot there. We do also have a free Telegram group that you can join. There is a link below to that. We have a fantastic community there. And our admins frequently do purge bots, and we kick people that are toxic. And when we see scam links, we boot the person making it, because there are a lot of bots in this space. If you haven't already, go ahead and make it rain on that like button and strap in for the show. And help me welcome Paul from Definity to this week's episode.
Hey, great to be here. Everything seems to be moving in the right direction. I'm not sure if Bitcoin's going to get to 1 million did you say in a month? I mean, that's
a couple months. He said,
yeah?
Yes, it was a pretty short time frame. So he said that about 3 weeks ago now. Time flies, and we're seeing some action in Bitcoin, but not enough that's going to take it to 1 million in that time frame. But he said part of the reason is that the dollar would absolutely dissipate, right? The value of the dollar would deflate so massively. So that part of that price action would come from that.
Well, as you probably know, and we've been saying it virtually the whole time that we've been on the show, that we think the dollar's going to go down, and we think that that will be linked to potentially lower interest rates, and also it will benefit risk on assets, of which Bitcoin is one of them. But I think the problem that we've got here is that I don't know who's making this other prediction to say that it will happen in such a short time frame. There are some signs actually that I wanted to have a look at this week in terms of the macro markets, where we're seeing gold break out. The chart of the dollar still looks like it's going to weaken further. And I think somebody asked either last week or the week before about sterling dollar as to, on one of the picks, which was outside the crypto space, and sterling against the dollar is breaking higher. And if you look back to how far and how bearish people were when it was approaching 104, there's a big sea change in sterling. And if you look at the sentiment, I know obviously this is probably more a US focused show, but there's plenty of bearish sentiment in Europe, and certainly a hell of a lot in the UK. And people are talking about how Brexit's not working and how the economy's doing badly, and it really isn't. I mean, it's just nonsense. It's not true at all. Our currency's doing well, and our stock market's doing well, and it's outperforming Europe. So again, you get this mismatch between sentiment and what the markets do, which is why I really like to look at technicals. But what I always like to do, you never say never in the markets, of course. That would be a nice surprise to see it go up a lot, but there'd have to be a pretty catastrophic event for something like that to happen. I'd almost wish it wouldn't happen, because it would mean something's gone very, very badly wrong somewhere. So we shall see. But if somebody makes a prediction like that, I tend to try and look at what else they may have said. I mean, we all get stuff wrong, of course, but why was that an outsized prediction against a lot of very kind of less aggressive predictions? Or is this person usually predicting pretty aggressive things? Because there's one thing that's known within the industry, is the more outlandish the prediction, the more likely it will get attention, and the more likely it will be, the more authority it almost gives the prediction. So if I say I think the Dow is going to crash to 1,000, all of a sudden it sounds really authoritative, and people kind of take notice of it. But so it can be a technique, but I'm not suggesting for a moment that anyone's doing that on purpose. But it would just be very interesting to know a little bit about the background and why they're saying it.
Yeah, so this is a person that, and I'm trying to remember how to pronounce their name, was like Balaji or something. And the reason why people are taking him serious is because in the early days of the pandemic, before anyone thought pandemic was even going to be a word to describe what was going on, he's like, hey, this thing coming over from China to the rest of the world is going to be a really big thing. And it's going to lead to government lockdowns, going to lead to this. And everyone said he was absolutely out of his mind. He was crazy, didn't know what he was talking about. That was so stupid and everything. And it turned out that a lot of what he predicted, not every single item, because he listed a lot of specifics, but a lot of that happened just like he said it would. And so what he's looking at, where that prediction comes from, is that he believes that the dollar is going to suddenly hyperinflate. And that if it hits hyperinflation, then it's not that Bitcoin just by itself shoots off to 1 million, but if the dollar collapsed, the value of Bitcoin could hit $1 million. Now, because of bad fiscal policy by politicians in the US for a long time, we've all thought or been concerned that the dollar will deflate at some point, right? Or just slowly erode over time, which is what it has been doing. But maybe it hits a point where it suddenly hyper deflates, right? Or hyperinflation. So the value deflates. That's pretty much what he's predicting. Now, maybe he knows some information we don't. We had the prime minister of an African country, was it Ethiopia or something, that just gave this speech that most people have seen. Maybe it was Kenya. I don't remember the specific country, but he was saying how he recommended people get out of US dollars, and that you will see why I'm saying this in the coming weeks. So maybe there's some things that, like countries, it's clear. I mean, Saudi Arabia has continued to hold up the value of the dollar by allowing their fuel to be sold in, or their oil to be sold in the dollar, and only the dollar. But it looks like, I don't know, the U.S. is losing a bunch of its allies, and that Saudi Arabia may make other arrangements with other countries for other currencies. And if that happened, what would be the ramifications of that? I don't truthfully know, but it can't be good for the U.S. dollar. And so, we don't know. There's been a lot of interviews with him. Maybe I'm saying it right. Balaji was his name that made the prediction. Maybe he understands some things that are going on with some of these different countries at a greater extent than what most people are aware of. And he thinks it will come to this culmination effect. Maybe he's wrong, just because he got the last major concern right, and so right, opposed to everyone else. Doesn't mean he's right this time. But it's interesting. I'm curious to learn more what the prime minister of the African country was talking about when he was talking about the U.S. dollar, and what was going on with that, like what he knows, right? So clearly he knows something that we don't know.
Where did you actually get the information from? Was it via Twitter or some other public forum?
On YouTube. It was
YouTube.
The crypto space has been alive with this discussion for the past 3 weeks. The $1 million prediction, as well as you can get the video, see the video. I just didn't write in my notes what country that was, but I've watched the video like 3 or 4 different times in the past.
Okay.
I'd say it was came out a week ago.
Right. I'll probably have a chat with Manu about it from Infinity. But what I would say is that if this is going to happen, you'll see the signs developing in the charts, as always. And actually, what is interesting right now is we are seeing a very interesting breakout in gold, silver, and potentially in the dollar index. So in terms of macro themes, we've got non-farm payrolls this Friday, although it's a European holiday for Easter. I don't think the US market is closed on Friday. In fact, I'm pretty sure it's not. So that would be a very interesting time to have an extremely big move, because most of Europe will be off. And then if you had some form of really outlandish number, like a really weak number, it could really, that could send the markets into a massive move that nobody's ready to react to. So that would be perfect timing, because if you're saying in the next month or so, it's like, well, what's going to trigger it? It's either going to be the CPI number, the next one, which is when I have to think. I think it might be the 14th of April. It's the next CPI number, but the next big number before that, and also a very big important macro theme, is non-farm. So we shall see. But if we have a look at the charts, I can show you what I'd be looking out for, because if things start to accelerate, you have to look at how big the moves are and what the bars are telling you, and I'll explain that when I show you a chart.
Yeah, let me pull it up.
Sure. So I was going to start off with the markets broadly, but let's just jump straight into the charts of gold. And see, gold was always on the radar anyway, but this has formed a really interesting triangular constriction. So sharp upward move, a triangular constriction. And what I like about this, it's heading to this previous high. So you've heard me say this many times on the show before, that prior resistance is always interesting to us technicians, because if we cross through that, it means the market is going into a new phase. So the closer it gets to it, the more excited I am about a possible breakout. That's also coming on the back of silver looking very bullish as well, which has broken this downward trend line that we've been following for some time. So, this is all, to my mind, fitting the major picture that we've got, that the dollar is going to go down rather than up. And if we go back to the dollar index chart, let me just find that here. It is down here. So the dollar index chart, if we take a step back, it's coming back to this prior support, which is very, very important. To me, this looks like it's made a big head and shoulders pattern. The right shoulder is quite large, but it's made this big head and shoulders pattern, and it's ready, or it looks ready to cross this 101.29. So if it breaks that, starts to accelerate, I think it's going to be really interesting. One of the currency pairs that I've had on the radar is the dollar against the Japanese yen, because this has filled out a very similar pattern. And I wasn't sure if we were going to get this consolidation as the market went into the holidays and Easter and all that sort of stuff. But it looks more like it's ready, because it had a quite a nice little rebound here, and I wasn't sure if that was going to get more extended. But the broader picture, the broad brush picture, is still one of a major top. So I think, given that this is a major top, the size of the move to the downside is going to be quite significant. So if you go from sort of 130 to 150, you got at least 20 points of downside expected. So we would use the height of this pattern approximately as a target. Now, it doesn't mean it's definitely going to get there. It just means that that's approximately how big the move should be, because you might be saying, well, why would I sell it at 101.29 if you're looking at the dollar index when it's already fallen from 115? Well, the reason is you'd sell it around here because you're expecting it to go all the way down to 90, which is something that we mentioned on the show before, that we think it's coming back down to here. But yeah, it could happen really quickly. I mean, it could happen as quickly as the bank collapses that we've seen. You see some of the price action in those banks, and they do something similar. They go down, have a rebound, and then suddenly they fall out of bed and down the stairs, as we say. So it's possible, but those are the signs I'd look out for. So I'd switch it across to a weekly chart, and then look at where the open and the closes are. So the open and the closes are the tick on the left and the right. Most people use candlestick charts. I prefer bar charts, but they're exactly the same. They're showing you the same information. But if these bars start to accelerate, so what I mean by that is the size of the bar gets bigger, and it closes, it opens at the high and closes at the low, opens at the high, closes at the low. If that starts to happen, you'd see it first on the daily and then extend into the weekly. then we could get some form of very aggressive move on our hands. So I'd be on the lookout for that. I mean, I'm on the lookout for the dollar falling anyway against most of the currencies. And I think this supports a move up in cryptocurrencies broadly, which is our core view anyway. But yeah, $1 million is quite a lot. Now, if we look at this chart here, if I just quickly have a look at Bitcoin, this is a triangular constriction or a flag formation, or another word for it is a pennant formation, but it's exactly as what I would expect to see. It's a sharp upward move where the market just sticks right at the top of the range. See, it's gone up really aggressively. People are shorting it and it's not going down. It's just holding, holding, holding. The next move should be as aggressive as this. Now, even if it is, I thought we'd get to around 33,000, which is this next resistance point. Given the size of this prior move, it could easily go more than that. It's 36, 37. But it's going to have to really go some to take out all the resistance that we've got up here to do it, virtually within a few weeks. But again, let's see what happens. But I think the market is setting itself up for a decent break higher. And I think taking it one step at a time is still the strategy that I'd be looking out for, and a rotation into the altcoins.
Yeah, and what you said earlier is like smart about how sometimes they make such a wild prediction that, say the person, and I don't know what their holdings are, but say they hold a lot of Bitcoin and they took a bet of, is it $1 million bet against that? So we actually bet somebody in an escrowed service $1 million that it would hit that in 90 days. So that was about 3 weeks ago. And so he's got 2 months and a week and a half left, essentially. And otherwise he loses that $1 million. But if he has a whole bunch of Bitcoin and it causes Bitcoin to pump an extra 20% because of it, well, then he's way ahead, right?
It could be. Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't.
We don't know what his Bitcoin holdings are, but he did get so much right about the pandemic, which takes a deeper look at what's happened internally with the different countries and the geopolitics behind it. And maybe he's really in touch with the geopolitics and sees something happening with the US dollar that will possibly cause its big breakdown. And in his place, he feels pretty sure of it to take $1 million bet. And maybe he's just improving the price of his Bitcoin holdings, however much he holds. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's to say it would go to 100,000 is almost enough at this point. Bullish enough. To say it would go to 250,000 is pretty insane. To say 500,000 is, again, an order of magnitude higher than that.
Yeah.
But to say
but so again, it's like the dollar would have to massively fall, and we would have to see the kind of Bitcoin rally that happens so extremely rarely. Because not even in 2021 did we see a run of anywhere near that magnitude, right? At the lows of the crypto winter, it had hit 3,200 and it only went to 69,000. So to go from even where it's at today at these current prices, to go from 28,000 to not only 10x, but to essentially 33x over the next 2 months and 10 days, that would be striking.
Well, I think we're at the wrong time for this to happen. When you get the end of a currency collapse, which ultimately I think will happen. And if you want to study Austrian economics, it talks about how the system's almost completely designed to eventually break, because that's what currencies do. Then it doesn't feel like we're in the right point in the cycle for that to happen right now. The underlying market seems fairly strong, and it looks like we're ready for more risk on. If this was to happen now within the next sort of 2 months or so, it would imply some form of absolutely incredible collapse. Now, I still never say never. I would never say never, because I've seen this stuff happen before. It's due. I mean, I remember going on the airwaves to talk about before September the 11th. I was watching the markets go down very aggressively. Gold was going up, the markets were going down, and I didn't know what was happening or why. There was no reason for it. The economy seems to be, inverted commas, okay, and yet we got these really weird technical setups, and they looked aggressive. So this may happen. This may be what we've got coming before us, which is why I never like to tell the market what to do. I'm always trying to follow the market and just not be influenced by negative sentiment when the market looks positive, and vice versa. So yeah, and one of the things also that I like to show people is the Asian financial currencies. If you look at the Asian financial currencies during the late 1990s, so I'm showing my age a bit here, but there was a massive Asian financial crisis, and you got currencies that were trading on the chart. They were breaking out and go, like the dollar against the Indonesian rupiah and against the Thai baht and all that sort of stuff. The initial breakouts looked massive. They looked like the market had gone a long way, but then you took a step back and looked at how far the crisis went, and it was just the equivalent of what we're talking about here. But it didn't happen in a month or two. It took a good 6-7 months, a year before we hit those massive highs. So I always say that never say never in the markets. It can things can happen, but that is up there with the most aggressive calls I've heard. If it's true, people are, the smart people who are watching this at the moment are going to make a lot of money, because if that goes, then imagine what all the altcoins are going to do. So, but the only thing that worries me, as I say, is I don't know what that means for everything else, whether there's some form of other collapse that would be equivalent to being effectively really bad as well. But we shall see. That's the thing about the market. It's always exciting.
What's interesting is another signal that led into the 2021 pumps is firing right now. And it has to do with Elon Musk actually helped push the 2021 pump.
Yes.
See this on Twitter. He updated the Twitter logo to a Shiba Inu, right?
Yeah. And it made me laugh.
Talking about that, right? And what's funny is one of the reasons I don't invest in meme coins is the predictability behind it is just low. And so I didn't have advance notice that this would happen. There's no business use case you can look at to say, oh, you're just trying to play off sentiment and understand sentiment rather than fundamentals, because there's not fundamentals behind the meme coins. And so this has kicked off some runs in like Dogecoin. And if you've seen Dogecoin, it's popped the last few days. So Doge. And Dogecoin popped boing all the way up like this. And it looks like it's doing a consolidation, probably even going to run some more, though I just don't invest in Dogecoin because it's just pure sentiment rather than fundamentals. In fact, the fundamentals behind Dogecoin, I really, really don't like. So interesting, right? And that this cursor led, if you see this way back here, when it really popped off before, this was right before the big pickups in 2021, right? So it was way down here, January, and then in end of January, it took off and pumped up some, and then kind of consolidated for a while, and then absolutely went crazy. But this led the 2021 March, April, May price takeoffs, and here we see it pumping again.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the metrics of a major bull market, that everything moves. So the tide rises all boats, and you will see highly speculative projects or meme coins or whatever they might be. I think the important thing to focus on with Elon Musk is right at the beginning of the development of the internet and the tech stocks around the 2000s, it was pretty clear to me that there was a bubble. But one of the things that really stuck in my mind about Google was that In terms of the cost of an advert in the UK at that time, if you wanted a 30-second, 20-second advert on primetime TV, it would have cost you to the order of £50,000 to get that advert on just for 30 seconds. And there is a theme to this. And it struck me that if you could connect to everybody in the world, how much would that value be to you? And I realized that whilst there was going to be a crash, there had to be some value in Google because of the advertising element, of the ability to reach everyone. And I think that is what we've got here. If you go back to Elon Musk's Twitter account, just have a look at how many people will look at a single one of his tweets. It's something like 28 million or so. And to have that sort of power, that sort of advertising power, aside from anything else, I think is just enormous. I mean, it's absolutely enormous. Yeah, I know, compared to all the individual, say, YouTubers or whatever, how many people they have, it's probably not as much. But the influence that this waves across the whole of Twitter and the value that he has, I think that's incredible. I think it really is incredible. So I wouldn't say never about it, but I also share your view that if you're going to buy something, at least if everything's going to go up, I'd rather buy something that has some proper value than something that's just being pumped because everybody's seeing it and everybody knows about it.
Yeah, Elon Musk is one of the greatest business people, creators in 100 years, right? And what he's done with Tesla, like the car space, people said you couldn't even create a new car company and be competitive on like mainstream level vehicles. And yet he did it. And he did it with a whole new type of vehicle where he had to improve battery usage and stuff. And so the innovation that he drove there was amazing. PayPal was amazing. He made some statements in the 90s before like smartphones were being used. I think Blackberries weren't even out yet, about how you'd be able to pay people on your phone and you'd be able to do this. And maybe it wouldn't even be in dollars. It would be in some other currency. And it's almost like he predicted this 25 years ago. And I think he's very in touch with what's happening with cryptocurrency and probably has some bigger plans. And right now he's just kind of playing with it to kind of bring interest towards cryptocurrency on something that, probably picks Dogecoin because there isn't a team behind it. So he can't necessarily get in trouble for it because he's not like coordinating with a team and stuff. There is really no team behind it. And so it's just one that he can play around with and pump and meme and have fun with the lowest amount of risk, but probably to bring interest to cryptocurrency, and probably has some business plans dealing with cryptocurrency, though it's not clear what they are. That would be smart to integrate Twitter with some kind of crypto wallet, maybe even a non-custodial crypto wallet right in people's Twitter accounts, so they don't have to think about things and can get into crypto in the easiest way possible. And maybe he has some plans that way. It's unclear at this point, but that's interesting that he did that. It's creating some more runs on the meme coins, which then brings in new money usually into that. And then they're like, oh, what else is there? Yeah. And then it then flows into other parts of the crypto sphere. At least that's historically what it's been to. I wanted to give a shout out to everyone that's here, bro. And I don't know how to say D-Hooks. Thank you for joining us here. Bro says Patreon is worth every penny, guys. Thank you for that. I tried to bring a really good family there, and I feel like we've accomplished that there are some incredibly smart people in there. They give incredible information. You'll see when you join it. What's going on? Rain and Paul says Saul G. Mark Wilson says, hi, guys. Good. Great show. OMI Queen, thanks for joining us. Smile Jay, hey, y'all. Thanks for being here. Economy Skywalker with the $2 super sticker. Thank you so much for that. Rainmaker was looking forward to Ryan S says, hey, Rainmakers, was looking forward to this video with Paul.
Thank you.
Asked if we can cover render. We should have time to get to that.
Yeah, I would have thought so. Yeah.
Web zombies, but Elon never messes with markets, right?
Yeah, that's an interesting one, actually. I mean, I think that what what could we guess? Like, you guys are smart, right? What might he be thinking of doing in the future? I think look, if he's made PayPal, he must be thinking about some sort of payment system.
He is, and he bought back, is it X.com or something, that when he sold PayPal, it actually transferred with it. I think it was X. I can't remember the name of it, because he had always planned on building something through that. And so he lost it in the sale of PayPal. It went with it. And he then used that money with PayPal and rolled it into some other businesses, including Tesla. But he recently, a few years back, bought that domain back. So what does he have planned with it? Elon is one of the greatest chess players. He's thinking way, way ahead. In fact, he was when he created PayPal. His goal was to be involved in that payment system, and the technology hadn't even been invented yet, and now it is. So I strongly suspect he has some big plans. In fact, perhaps his purchase of Twitter were involved with those plans, because he could get one of the largest user bases in the world through buying Twitter. And maybe that was the plan all along. So he does have a lot of capital, social capital, in that there's a lot of people that made money on Tesla. And it's funny how many people you talk to that are between the age of 20 to 35. And Tesla was the first stock that they bought, and that they still have holdings in Tesla, of all things, a car company, because they've seen what he's done with Tesla, and they're interested in everything that he does.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, perhaps what he's thinking about is the equivalent of that Chinese social app where they use it just for everything. You know, so that you message, you pay for everything. It's the equivalent, probably the amalgamation of everything that we've got: a social network, a payment system, and therefore that must be what he wants to do, because everybody's. I think we said it on the show before. That's what everybody's trying to do. You've got Facebook that's trying to do shorts, and you've got YouTube that's doing shorts, a bit like TikTok, and then LinkedIn that's like work anniversaries and things that have happened before. They're all kind of merging into one. So there will be a rush for the sort of kingpin that everybody finds very easy to use. I think the first step has got to be to clear out the bots, which is what he's doing with the payment system. The bots definitely were a problem, because you never really knew people commenting whether it was real or not, or whether it was designed to start an argument, which seems to be what tends to happen a lot on Twitter. And but we shall see. So it's interesting times, as they say. Definitely interesting times.
Yeah, I think he's getting the base stable on it, clearing out the bots, getting the revenue stable, because he lost a lot of advertisers because he wasn't willing to censor one side of the speech dialogue anymore. And so there's some pressure campaigns that got some of his advertisements pulled to try to capsize the company, because all the other platforms are up for censoring speech, and he wasn't. And so, that was the odd man out that group decided to attack. And so it hurt, I'm sure, but he's getting the revenues stabilized. And who knows, maybe with that kind of user base, he could go into short form video included into it too, maybe even long form video like what we do on YouTube, right? And he's
that would be
already
amazing.
got user base and expanding that. So what he's really good at doing is innovating. So it does feel like he's stabilizing it, and then the innovation is ready. We promised a lot of things that we would get into.
Yes, let's get on.
But this discussion's been so interesting. So
absolutely. I'm intrigued.
We only get you once a week, so it's always great to hear your insights, especially because you don't follow this stuff as much. And you said a very important factor, which made me think about a conversation I heard just recently, because I know somebody has been in the space since 2016, and they haven't done all that well. And I was thinking of, why haven't they done all that well? And you talked about how, like, you try to stay away from sentiment so you can tell what price action is doing. And that's true, that sentiment so often gets things wrong. And so you can be in the crypto space for a lot of times and not make millions of dollars if you're doing things wrong. And so anyway, maybe another time I can go into what specifically people can do so they don't find themselves in that exact same situation. I gave that person some tips, but sometimes people aren't ready to listen. So
yeah, it's a hard thing. I mean, the thing about trading in this space, it's you have to be very careful because the volatility is massive. You don't normally get this sort of volatility with any markets, and we're talking huge moves that really are unusual. So so your time frame matters. So it matters whether you're trading short term or long term. So if you're in and out all the time, you need a strategy. If you're trading long term, you need a strategy. And the problem is that if you don't have a strategy, whether it's fundamental or technical, then something can come and upend your view just at the wrong time. Actually, I think a great example of that could be, say, for example, something we're going to look at is OMI. Now, for me, technically, OMI, I can't buy that. But if you have long-term belief in it and also understand the risk profile, then these moves aren't going to change your view. They're going to be an opportunity to get in. So so if we look at OMI here, which is one of the picks, I was saying last week that I was a bit worried about the way it was trading because it was trading near a low. It's broken through the low, but look how it's rebounded. People like you have jumped in and bought in there. And for some, that was a great opportunity. For me, I'm still waiting. But if you don't believe in what you're doing, then you're going to get taken out at the wrong time. And I think that is a big problem. So I think also some people say you can mix technicals and fundamentals. You can, in the way that when you look at the background to a project and you say, well, I like this is good, and then I will buy it, and if the technicals agrees with it, then fine, and if it doesn't, okay, but when it does agree with it, I get more aggressive. That's pretty cool, but you have to be quite skilled to do that, and that's why some people just get into technicals because they think it's the easiest way to look at the markets, and it really isn't. It does take some work, but the point is that if we're taking a project like this, you have to wait for it to show some strength, which means it's got to come off the bottom before I buy it. So, this point here for me was a buy because the market made a base and it went up. Now, it doesn't guarantee that you're going to be right because it's broken up and it's come back down. And now on that trade, I'd be losing money. That's why I always have a parachute level or a level where I'd say, where am I wrong? If I buy this, where am I wrong? Now, if I was to buy this here today, I have a stop loss, which is the all-time low. So, or the low of this particular chart here. Now, should I buy it is the next question. Well, that question will be answered if the market makes a strong enough base for me to then be interested in the project. I could speculatively buy it here because it's come off the low. But, if you imagine if a friend of yours is always late and then you're about to meet him or her and you're about to go on a flight somewhere and that person needs to be not late, what are the chances of that time them not being late? If they're always late, then that's the kind of way that person acts. Will they change their ways? Possibly. It takes a big jolt. So what I'm saying is you need a few times for that person to show that they've changed in order for you to start trusting that they've changed in their personality. It's the same in the markets. When the markets are making consistent lows or not moving the way everything else is, for me, I need to see it confirm that it wants to go higher before I get interested in it. Now, I love the sound of this project, and I think it really is interesting. And I do think potentially, based upon somebody else's analysis, that this could be a good place to buy with a stop below the low. But notice that because I don't know anything about the fundamentals, I have to find a place where I'm comfortable with getting out. But I could equally say that I think ETH is looking really interesting here because it's made this technical pattern that we talked about last week. It's much more expensive to buy, but it's performing for me at the moment better than the other markets because it's made a technical pattern that it's broken out from, and the overall technical pattern is looking better. Now, it's harder to buy ETH than it is to buy OMI because it's A, so much more expensive. B, it looks like you've missed the move. And look, it could stop here and it could go straight back down. But on probabilities, it looks like it's going to go higher. So the psychology of the market ends up being far more important than anything else. And that takes time to kind of understand and go through cycles, which is, what you've said many times. You need to be here week on week to see when the markets are really good and actually work through the times when the markets are really bad, because those times are just as important because you're learning from it.
Agreed. And I like that you take a different approach and a different perspective, and yours is strictly a price analysis perspective, which just helps the audience understand different ways to look at things and different rules to set up. As I was thinking about my friend, right, and what went wrong, well, his rules change all the time. I remember him jumping into a bunch of meme coins in 2021 after Dogecoin pumped and some of the other meme coins ran, trying to catch the next wave, right? And to me, it's like, I already, first of all, I don't do meme coins, but secondly, if I was going to do meme coins, I'm definitely not going to try to catch the next thing after it just happened with these other ones. And, I think he lost a bunch of money on those types of bets. And so I don't know what his rules are, but I was thinking about that situation. Just because you're here doesn't mean you'll do well. You still have to make some smart choices. And what do those smart choices look like? I have my rules, and so far over the past 5 years, they work very well for me. And that's what I share as my rules. Paul has very different rules, but they worked well for him over the past 30 years in different ways that he looks at it. And he usually misses, like we talked about this ETH, the smaller move up, so that he can catch, he just waits till a bigger confirmation that, yes, it's ready to run up. And part of that confirmation is that it's already going up. So no, he didn't buy the bottom, and that's okay within his rules. And in investing, you don't have to be right all the time. You can actually even be right less than 50% of the time, as long as you're making smart moves. And so that when you're right, you earn far more than when you're wrong and you lose. Which is an interesting thing about investing. Is like, wait, you can be right less than 50% of the time and still make gains. Well, yes, if you make sure when you're wrong, you cut your losses quickly, and that when you're right, those times that you're right, your gains are quite good. That can actually be the case. Let's jump into some more of the stuff we wanted to look at. There were on your list that you wanted to look at that had some interesting price action.
Yeah. So from last week, in no particular order, Cardano was looking interesting. It's been on the radar a couple of times. Let's have a look. So let's have a look at that first. So this is developing through the trend line. So we talked about the trend line. Let me just get that in. So it's broken the main downward trend line, and it's also, last week it was getting close to, or just gone through this resistance line. And I like the fact that it's playing around this previous level, this previous support. It's found a bit of resistance, come off, it's come back again. So it's knocking on the door of wanting to break up, I think. Now, again, I could be wrong, but I like the way that this is compressing. I like to see things compress near resistance. So this is on watch, and I like it. I like the price action. It hasn't broken out yet. I still need the confirmation, but that's why I wanted to look at it. And I know it's one that you guys tend to follow and have a long-term kind of bullish view on. So I thought, I don't want to miss this breakout, given that we've waited a long time for this to turn bullish, and I think it could get hoovered up in the next move higher. So Bitcoin's moving, Ethereum's moving, and then we get the next bigger coins going, Solana, Cardano, etc. So that's on the list for me. There were just a couple that I thought looked pretty interesting from they were getting a bit of interest. So I thought we should perhaps look at them, and we hadn't talked about them for a little while. So Fantom being one of them. So Fantom for me has been, it's been stuck in a range for a while, but it's made this triangular constriction. It's just trying to break out of it. So it's almost like the timing is really interesting that these things are moving now. And so if I was to show you the trend line or the pattern that I'm drawing here. So you see this resistance and this support. It looks very triangular. And so if this continues, it's actually being painted into a corner. So at some point, it needs to break out. So I like the fact that the prior move was bullish. So we should see a bullish breakout. So that's potentially coming soon. Now, not guaranteed at all. It's just that, this is, if we look at the highs and the lows, the market is being forced into a corner. So at some point, it's got to either break up or down. And the bias for the moment, given the macro picture, is for a breakout to the upside. So I thought, let's look at that. Where am I wrong about that? Well, any one of these support lines, if they break, then this would completely change the way this pattern looks. So it wouldn't be great, for example, if 39 cents goes. So that's approximately where I put my stop. So I think that was why I wanted to look at this one, because it looked like it's ready to do something. And I think that something might be a move up.
Yeah, so you would rate this as a buy?
I'd rate this as a buy here. Yeah, I mean, I'd like to see it break up just through this resistance line as a caveat.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd rate it as a buy.
So right now you're actually waiting because it's probably going to either break up or break down. And so you're waiting for it to break up above that as a confirmation that it's likely, because we can't see the future and things could break above that and down, which is why that's where you would put your stop in. But
yeah. What I don't
interest list.
Yeah, absolutely. What I'd like to do is I'd like to find things that look like they're about to break out, because once they've broken out, it's almost like you're chasing it a little bit. So I don't want to be chasing it.
Okay.
So this is why this goes on the radars that, this could be ready to go. So let's just watch it. And so that's why I like it. And that's why I like Cardano as well. It hasn't actually gone. It's just, it looks like it's about to go.
Right about to. And so let's take a look at Cardano. I like where the chart is, and I agree with your sentiment on this. This looks ready to rumble.
Yeah. So those two, for me, are looking pretty good. So we also had a similar looking one is Dash, which is, what I like about this is it's got very good support and resistance. So it trades nicely from a technical point of view. Again, it's kind of sleeping at the moment. It's caught up in this range. So I'm looking for a breakout. So actually this for me is a wait, but I'm waiting in exactly the same way that if it starts to break out, then I'm going to jump on it. So it's almost like you're at the side of you're at the station waiting for the train to start moving. And then if it does, you jump on it. So if this can, I'd like it actually, let me just move this down because that's a bit of an aggressive trend line. But if it starts to get through this $64 area, so if it's done that through the 64, then we'll be targeting the 77. And then if it gets through the 77, we should open up to 134. So I think those are the steps for me. But I'm generally bullish on it as long as this trend line stays in effect. So this upward line for me is keeping me on the bull side. But it needs to respond. It's had its first wave respond, which is good. It's come back down again. Now needs to respond again. But that's why Dash is on the radar.
Nice. Well, I'm glad you threw those into the ones to look at today. So the ones on your mind right now is where ETH is at, Fantom, Dash, and Cardano.
Yeah, I like ETH the most. I like Cardano second, and then it sort of trickles down. Because ETH, as you can see, is moving right now, so that's why I like that, and I like that last week as well. But yeah, a couple. I'd say this is a wait, but this is, you've got to watch it, because if everything starts to move, then this should go as well. I don't see why it wouldn't. It's responded well before.
Yeah, great finds and great picks. let's take a look at some viewer picks from the comment suggestion on the last week's video.
Yeah.
Let's take a look at Binance Exchange. We'll take a look at HBAR, Animal Concerts, and we already looked at OMI, and then we'll get into some of the live chat picks.
Yeah, absolutely. I must admit, I did have a look for the Binance Exchange. I could not find it. I don't know if there's
ORE.
a code.
Yeah, ORE.
Sorry, that's ORE. Okay. It's ORE US dollar. Here we go. Is this it? No, that can't be it.
I don't think it is.
Right.
Let me see.
Because the actual full name didn't come out on there or CoinMarketCap. So unless it's Oreo.
No, it wouldn't be. It's going to look like this, and the current price is at half a penny.
Okay.
So Binance Exchange, you see the ORE there is their ticker symbol.
Right.
If you go up from where you just were, well, that's at the right price, so that must be it.
That must be it. Yeah. Okay. I wonder. Lots of volume in the middle of the chart there. Big pump up, big move down. The overall trend is negative. It probably doesn't take a technical analyst to say that. I'm sure you can see that. And as I was saying before, with needing to feel comfortable that the market trend has changed, what we need is for the market to prove that it wants to go higher. So I would set some challenges for it. So can this break this downward trend line? Put that in there. That's the main one. And unless that could be a price action that is printed but not actually traded. So it could be an error price, but it looks actually like it did trade there because it's come back again. But it's trading down at this rate. So we can see that it has a trend rate at the moment that started on the 14th of March, and it seems to be following, and it's gone through its low of the chart as well. So this is right near the low of the chart, which is either means that it's a bargain at this point, or it's going to go a bit lower. I can't tell you what that will be. So for me, I have to stay out of this because it could, for all I know, collapse, and I don't want to get caught in something. I can't put a stop on this that makes sense other than putting it, say, just guessing and saying, oh, well, maybe I'll lose this amount if I'm wrong. But the trend is down. So I don't buy into downward trends unless there's specific, really strong signals to do so. So for me, I'd say it's either a sell or a wait. And for me to want to buy it, so just because I don't like it doesn't mean I won't look at it. It has to break this trend line and at least trade for a couple of days over this 0.0066. So a sixth of a penny would be a good level for it to recover, to show me that there's some buying, and allow me to buy at that point and perhaps put a stop where the all-time low is. Then I feel like that makes more sense from a risk-reward perspective.
Yeah, I think that chart is missing some price history that I'm getting from CoinMarketCap. So I'm just going to share this.
Okay.
And it
does look like it is.
Looking at the whole history, right? It was once at 13 cents, pumped to 25 cents.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's all the way down at half a penny, which it was at that previous low before. So it's retesting that low. And what it does here is going to be interesting. So is it going to continue to break lower or not? I think it's been savaged probably by token vesting. It now has 1/3 of the tokens in circulation. So one of the things that the stock market doesn't usually have, that the crypto market often has in the early years of a crypto project, is a lot of additional vesting of the tokens coming into circulation. And it really hurts the price, especially during a bear market. If it launches in what's somewhat of a bull market, and then it goes into a bear market, normally the price would go down too, but then the token vesting just savages the price. And that's exactly what's happened here. Now, do I like this one? I do. I'm really curious as to what it does right here. If we look at the last year, see, it was this low before, and it's right back at those lows, just above how low it hit here. So I'm curious as to what it does. As far as the OR project itself, The Open Rights Exchange blockchain is built for decentralized identities, assets, and rights. Essentially, OR works cross-chain with Ethereum, Algorand, and EOS, and more to connect Web 2 identities to Web 3, allowing everyone everywhere to easily use blockchain technology. So I think they've been punished pretty hard. What I suspect is if we are near or at the bottom on a lot of things, you could almost take a dart and throw it at the dartboard as far as picking which projects might do well from the bear market going into the bull market. And that OR would probably fit in there, probably doing a little bit better than average because it's been savaged so bad. So I do own some OR, and it has not done super well for me. That's okay. I'm totally fine with being patient and waiting for it to do well in the coming months. Is it highest on my radar as far as best picks? I haven't kept up with the team to know if fundamentally it would be. I did list out 5 of what's highest on my mind in the free Telegram community below. You can look at the most recent pinned message. I put it in there to the Telegram chat. I had already discussed with the Patreon members about a week ago those same projects, but just wanted to update those on Telegram with where things are at. I do own some OR, but is it highest on my buy list? It's a nibble price for me. So if I were going to say whether I was going to buy, wait, or sell, it's just a nibble because it might go lower. And so it would be an extremely, extremely small buy because it's so cheap. The market cap's at 2 million, and which is where I like the market caps to be. And I hope it comes together. I don't know what partnerships and other things they're working on. I like the general idea of connecting Web 2 to Web 3. That's going to take a lot of partnerships for that to come together, and I don't know where they are in that. But if all of a sudden they came out with some announcements, well, it could pump up very big from how low that market cap is. So, I already know based on the way your systems work that would not be a buy for you.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
You want confirmation that it's going the other way from the direction it has been going.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting on that chart that it's matching the prior lows. So I think if it shows support around here, then it would mean quite a lot to the chart. But given what I'm seeing in front of me, I can't buy. It's right. Like it's breaking a rule.
Break your rules.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So we say
when we get messed up is when we break our rules.
Exactly. So
when we make an exception, it usually goes poorly for us. All right. Well, let's take a look. Thanks for suggestion on that one. Let's take a look at HBAR.
Yeah. So where's that gone now? Oh, here we are. It's the first one. So yeah, that is caught in a range. Now I think we've liked it before. I mean, it had a very good initial breakout. But one of the things that I kind of look at, I don't look at Elliott wave all the time, but I like to occasionally use a bit of Elliott wave theory because the simple stuff is very simple. And that is, they say that for a beginning new trend, you need to have 5 waves in the direction of the main trend. And so what we've got here is we've got 1, 2, and then a 3. So I can't count that as a 5. That means that that's not a 5-wave upward move as yet. So we're still waiting for some form of confirmation. Now, what I think we need to do is wait here just for a little bit because there is potentially a very interesting technical setup coming, but it just might go around the houses a bit before it does it. So I like this line here. I think left shoulder, head, potential right shoulder needs to form. So consolidation here prior to a breakup would be what I think this will happen. I mean, it's a bit unusual for this first leg to push this line like this. It's normally a bit flatter. Sometimes, it's the other way. It's better if the neckline is this way because you get the buy trigger a bit early. The problem with head and shoulders patterns that are like this is you eventually get the buy trigger, and that trigger comes in really late because the trigger's further away. So you're chasing a higher trend line. But we could probably decide to buy it before it gets to that point anyway. There should be some good signs. I like this resistance point here because solid support, tried to break through it, failed, then did have a really bad move to the downside, came back, retested it, got through it, but wasn't sustained. Now it's back through it again. Very recently, once again, it's hit it. It's come straight off it again. So this particular line here at 7 cents is key. So I would like to see it break through 7 cents as a very first trigger to buy it. If it gets through 7 cents, then of course the next target would be here. But for the moment, I think it's a wait for me just because of the reasons that I mentioned before. Structurally, I think it needs to do just a bit more work for it to base out. But I do like the fact that overall it does have a higher low. So we got this major low down here. We've got another low here from what it's trying to build on. That has an upward trend. It also has an upward trend from this low here. So if we draw in this line, there are some positives that we can add to it that we can't say about certain other markets. So if I was going to buy it here, putting a stop below this line for me, or these two support points, would be where I would put my stop loss. So I have a valid place and a really good place with which to put stops in. But I just would like to see this running a little bit further, breaking out of this consolidation before I get bullish.
So for you, it's still a wait, but you're watching this.
Yeah, I like it. I like
right
it, but
direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for me, this would actually be a buy with some caveats, and I'll share those caveats. Essentially, the major caveat is I'm not buying a lot with market cap projects in this range. We call these blue chip or the higher cap altcoins. But if I were, absolutely, I would be adding Hedera to the list at this price. Now, it's not the recent lows of 3 cents that it hit, but it's not even quite 2x that, and almost everything bottomed out in late December, early January anyway. And so we can't rewind time and pick up prices there. But I like this one. Realize the price was, when it ran in September and October of last year, it was all the way at 50 cents. And so now it's all the way down at 6 cents. So essentially it's like 88% off from that price. I do like this one for the larger cap tokens, and probably the next cycle when I'm just being far more conservative, I'll be buying larger cap alts, and if I was doing that this cycle, Hedera would be among that. The biggest one being Cardano, but Hedera, I've seen enough of what they're doing and the partnerships that they made and everything that, Hedera, it just puts it in that category for, if I were to hold some of the higher cap altcoins, Hedera would be one of them. So I like it at that. Perfect. Let's jump over. Great suggestion by one of our viewers. Thank you for that. Let's look at animal concerts.
Yeah. Again, this is circling round. We've looked at it a couple of times, and what a day to look at it. It's had a very big move today, and I think you've said nothing but positive things about this. I was probably a bit more cautious given that it was correcting, but the level that I'm looking for it to break through is right up here, because that would complete a double bottom. But what's nice about this price action is we've got a low here and a low here, so we can now properly draw an upward trend line. And I think this is more structurally like an impulsive wave. As we were saying before, it needs 5 waves. So we've had the 5 waves up, we've had the correction. Now we're beginning potentially a move that looks much more impulsive, which means it's moving in the direction of the main trend. So the trend was very negative before, but the longer the bases take to form, the bigger the potential rally. And I mentioned that a while back about Bitcoin and Ethereum. Those are major bases that take a long time. The ranges are really huge, but that does set us up for a big rally. And I think this is what's happening here. It's not completed its base, because in order to complete its base, it needs to get through this level here. But it's definitely showing some very interesting signs of wanting to complete the base. A, it's stopped trending down, which is the first sign. B, you have big swings, which is fine. But it needs to take this level out for me to get fully sort of into buying this, mainly because I think if it does that, it's got a long way to go up. And whilst it's below it, the probability is a bit less, or it's a bit more risky from my perspective. But I could be tempted to buy it here, given the sharp move that we've seen, given that it's in this upward trend here, and I would have a place to bail out if I was wrong. So I'm going to stick this on the buy list, given also that the macro picture has been turning more bullish in general, and there will be a sweep into the altcoins. Hopefully, this is one that gets picked up on it.
Yes. Yeah, big additional move there. It absolutely took back off. Now, this is one that I've had on my radar for top ones I've been watching since December. And one of the gold Patreon subscribers was just asking me my thoughts in December on what I was most interested in. And especially to the gold subscribers that try to interact when they private message me, gold and above. And so I was like, well, let me give you the 5 that are on my mind. And Animal Concerts was one of the top ones on there. Spores was another one, right? So this was late December. And, you know, the charts were absolutely scary, but the market cap had gotten so good. And I've talked to the team several times and had them on the show. And I was like, I think this one's massively undervalued. And so then a couple of days later, I shared it out to the general Patreon, or to the Discord that Patreon has access to. And then later shared that out with the Telegram group. And it's done phenomenal since then. You don't know when it's going down like that, but the market cap had reached such good lows. And fundamentally, I still believed in the project. And that's how I came to that conclusion, because my rules are I invest in teams and ideas, and especially look for periods when the general sentiment gets down, because that happens in the crypto space. And generally, without a YouTube channel, sometimes it's really hard. And even with the YouTube channel, it's really hard to get a team to respond to you and to see what's going on, see if things are alive and well. Having connected with them and had them on the channel, I felt strong enough that things were still very alive and well. And that's why I was willing to risk, even though the charts at the time were heading what seemed like straight down, and absolutely it reversed from there and is doing quite well. I still think this is a buy. And even though the price isn't as cheap as it was, let me just share with people what it was at. And I'm trying to pull it up. There we go. On Coin Market Cap. Let me share my screen. And so even still, we don't know what the exact market cap is, but if all the tokens were in circulation, the fully diluted market cap is only 7.5 million. So let's say, and I don't know what the numbers are, let's say 50% of their tokens are in circulation. That would make it have a market cap of 3.75 million. Okay, that's still pretty low market cap. It's not as low as it was. As low as it was back in December, it was way down here. It's essentially 3x from those lows. So if it would be, say, I don't know. I don't even know what the existing market cap is now, but 1/3 of this would have been a 2.5 million fully diluted market cap. Now, those prices aren't necessarily ever on the table again. Maybe they will be, but maybe they won't be. So we have to evaluate going forward, is this good enough? And I still like it. It had hit a prior point of 3 cents, which is a 5x from here. And that was still in a fairly terrible market when it hit that. Now, Animal Concerts hasn't gotten a lot of publicity yet, even though they have some really good partnerships with some top music artists to bring virtual concerts into the metaverses. And so we haven't seen that happen yet with them doing that. And so that's part of the reason they're on such a big discount. The big question is, well, will that happen? Will they end up bringing concerts to the major metaverses like Sandbox? Well, we don't know the answer to that for sure if it will happen, but I suspect the team has the right connections, the right quality, the right interactions, that is going to come together. Their team is very sharp. They have some of the best connections in the music industry of anybody in the crypto space. They're working very hard on that. And though I don't know anything for sure, it's been hinted that the right things are coming together for that to go right, with no confirmation as to which metaverses and stuff. Yeah, they're having the right conversation with the right people for that to come together. And that's part of the investment space. Once it's known and big announcements come out, and yes, Animal Concerts is helping put together this metaverse of this major artist in this metaverse, and that's coming together, then everyone's jumping on the bandwagon, and Animal Concerts is no longer cheap. So I like to do the fundamental research to see what's happening so that I can buy before that happens, so that I can be selling as some of that vision is realized. So that takes some risk, and then there's some potential reward there. And as we see in the charts, maybe there are some people that have some knowledge of something going on, because there's other people than just me that have gotten very interested in this token in the past number of months.
It's definitely a big jump in volume. I mean, it's been there before around here, but you know, yeah, they must have announced something for such a big move. But yeah, don't know what, but moves like that, you definitely have to keep an eye on, especially if it sticks and closes kind of close to that high. I mean, it's come off quite a bit from the high, but still, you know, there are people who trade short term who want to take profits. If it can at least hold on to 50% of that, it still would look pretty good. But as I say, whilst it's above that trend line, broadly speaking, people like yourself, I would imagine you're not going to sell it if it goes up to, you know, 0.0009 or even to here. You're looking for a much bigger move. So what I'd like to see is, as it goes up, it generates more interest, and then that momentum starts to gather. And yeah, you know, the overall trend should be much bigger than just this if it's going to be a good trade. So that's why I don't mind waiting, especially when you take a step back and look at the big picture, see how far it's fallen. But percentage terms, yeah, that's massive. So, you know, buying it down there and saying that was a really good trade, that's pretty impressive. That's a good call, because, you know, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, it doesn't always work out that then you end up hitting the bottom like that. It just so happened to be in this case that, yeah, it timed almost exactly the bottom there. But, you know, one of the ways to keep up to date on Animal Concerts is follow them on Twitter. Look, they're only at 63,000 followers so far, and looks like they've been making some Decentraland wearables in the meantime, right? So they partnered with, or inspired by, so somebody else made them, and Cristobal Balenciaga. Looks like they've made some Decentraland wearables that way. Really, this is what it's all about. It says, can't wait for the next metaverse concert. The idea of attending a concert in a virtual world is mind-blowing for most people, and that's exactly what we are bringing.
Amazing.
So this is what Animal Concerts is about. Is it going to happen? Is it going to come together? We don't know. That's where we're taking some risk. It may or it may not. How likely is it? Well, you have to decide that for yourself. But for me, that's why this has been a buy. And it still is, even though it's not as cheap as it was. All right. So that was Animal Concerts. We looked at OMI briefly. Can we go back to OMI, though?
Yeah, of course we can. Yeah.
Get back up.
Yeah, sure.
And
yeah, sorry.
To Akomi Skywalker asked to chat. I want a super chat I wanted to get to after this.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. So we bounced in and out of Akomi, didn't we? So
yeah.
Basically, last week, just to recap, the trend wasn't looking particularly good for me because it was hovering near the all-time low of this chart. Whether it's an all-time low, I'm not sure, but it was the all-time low of this particular chart. Especially with everything else going up as well. I didn't like that. You know, there is a bullish wave coming into the market, and this is operating on the opposite side of that at the moment. But it has broken through the low, shaken people out, and now it's consolidated back above it. So it's like there is something in the technical world that we call a bear trap, and that is the bears sell on a low break, and then the market snaps back over. and they get caught. So they're caught short, and then the market squeezes and squeezes. Now we'll see whether this does squeeze from here. It's not done enough for me to get bullish, but it's interesting that it's managed to break such an important low and quickly recover it. So there's definitely some interest to buy there because it's come in fast, but it still needs to do a bit of work basing before I'd like to buy it. Now, I don't mind taking it all the way back up here again. And I've got a very small position, and it's small enough so if it goes to zero, it goes to zero. It's one of those things. But if I was trading this for the first time, I personally would be waiting and just waiting for it to come back up, recover pretty much this resistance level here. That for me is the point of where I get interested. So wait for me. You could use the moving averages as well. The purple line's the 200-day. If it gets over that, then we could use that as a buy marker. But at the moment, those averages are still going down. They were consolidating here. The medium-term moving average went flat, which was why this was exciting around here, because usually when you get a base, the market takes off from there. But it could still be forming some other form of pattern. And, we saw with animal concerts in December, that's exactly what it looked like. And it turned around and was very aggressively bullish. So I need a bit more confirmation before I can turn.
Yeah, makes total sense. My conclusion is a different one, but I have different rules than Paul. And so it fits within my rules, but not within Paul's. And that's okay, because we have different periods of time where we hold and where we're attracted to. And Paul has access to a lot more markets than I do, than I look at and follow. So for me, let me share my screen. I'm what you call a fundamental investor, and I hold for periods, like a swing trader. And what I like to do is buy low and sell high. And we all like to buy low and sell high, but different investors have different buy points that trigger their buying, right? So what I look at is value, and I look to a lot of the fundamentals behind what a team is doing and what is the idea of their project and where are they at. And I try to buy when I feel it's cheap and sell when it's not cheap. And so to me, their token is very, very cheap right now, and it's very, very attractive. Now, I have been accumulating on this whole downturn, and I picked up the majority of mine all in this range here. So do I think this is even a better price to buy at than here? Yes. Am I concerned that it goes to zero? Tiny bit concerned, because that could always happen. Usually it has to do with if something happened to the CEO. In this case, David Yu, I would be very concerned about the future of the project. It still could be successful without him, but he's such a major part of it. And so I don't see anything happening to him. He's fairly young and in great health. And so for me, this is absolutely a buy. I think we're getting a chance at some really, really good prices. The FUD level on OMI reminds me of the FUD level that Cardano was going through back in 2020 when Cardano bottomed below 3 cents, hitting 1.7 cents. But even when it was at 3 cents, it just reminds me of the level of FUD the Cardano community was feeling and getting with where the OMI price is now and the same level of FUD. That a lot of people that have been holding this whole time are just feeling exasperated at these lows. And so you're getting a lot of the weak hands getting shaken out. And that's what I like to see. And a lot of people think, they look back to the left on the charts and they see these really big lows and they're like, oh man, I would have loved to buy there. But do you realize at that price, that's when the majority of people were selling, because they were so caught up in the sentiment that they sold rather than bought at that price. And I feel like this is another one of those places. So even though OMI is outside of the price range of generally where I buy, and it's currently at a market cap of 200 million. This is one of the ones I make an exception for, because this is something, in my opinion, has 100x price potential when massive money flows back into the market, which leads us right to Comey Skywalker's. Thank you for the super chat. exactly in line with what his question was. Hi guys, judging by your previous cycle's experience, if the halving is 2025, when do you think the crypto market will start going up? Mid 2024 perhaps? So the halving is actually mid 2024, but the effects historically have been seen the year after as far as a major run. So if that were the only factor happening, probably we wouldn't see massive money come into the market till 2025, like what you're thinking. Is that going to be the case? I don't think it's going to be the case, though it might be. As an investor, I have to understand that it could play out multiple different ways, and being okay with whatever the market is telling you. I suspect that we might have a run in the coming months. Now, how big and how high that run is, I don't know. I hope it's gigantic. Is it likely to be gigantic? I would say it's only like 20, maybe 15% likely to be gigantic. That maybe it's just somewhat of a run and then it still trades sideways and the bigger run comes next year or the year after. I don't know. But whether that bigger run happens this year, next year, or the year after, that's still a relatively short time frame to invest in something to then experience multiple X returns on that something. So that's good enough for me. Like, that's what's exciting to me. You know, I used to invest in stocks and then I moved mostly to real estate. In real estate, to make multiple returns on your money, you had to use a lot of leverage. So say you had to buy a $100,000 home and you put $10,000 down, and then you had to rent it out and you had to manage a renter. And what you were hoping was that your 10,000 would turn into 20,000 and then 30,000 and 40,000 over coming 5-year or 10-year period. Maybe over 10 years, you earn 100,000 equity. So over 10 years, you earn 10x returns. What I like about in the crypto space is if you're buying pretty smart over a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6-year time frame, if you're investing with some pretty smart rules, I don't see why you can't be making 5x or 10x or 20x or 30x without having to manage a renter, which is why I went out of real estate and into crypto. No managing renters, and you could experience more than the returns of what you could make in real estate, but you have to get some pretty good rules. So my rules are I stay away from meme coins. I stay away from the kind of pump and dumps. Hey, we're doing an ICO on your site. You can buy right from our site right now. I don't participate in those. I look for solid teams with a narrative that makes sense to me, with a team that has a background to accomplish that. And then I try to buy when it's going through some bad times, the token, and then hold it till massive money comes in the market and everything's pumping. Hopefully my pick's more than normal, and then take some gains out there. And so I don't know whether it's going to happen this year, next year, or the year after. But if you're buying smart, you're not using money that you need to pay your mortgage or to pay your rent, then it should free up your holding time so that whether it happens this year, next year, or the year after, you're very well positioned to make some amazing returns as long as you're buying projects that don't die between now and then. And even if some of them die, if you're buying good projects and you're diversifying, well, then hopefully between the projects that didn't die, it should more than make up for the ones that did. All right, long answer, but thank you for the super chat. Yeah, Bitcoin halving, Edson, between April to May in 2024 is when the Bitcoin halving is going to happen. Okay, cool. Let's see. Question by John Steves, and then let's jump into some of the ones that are recommended today. This is a question for you, Paul. Are there any channels that Paul likes to follow for opinions or ideas on what assets to look at?
I tend to like to do my own research. I would suggest that there's a few people out there who are worth having a look at. So there's a guy who does some Elliott wave analysis. His name's Todd Gordon, and he's very good, and he's got a channel. I think when you look at his Elliott wave analysis and put it together with other stuff that I see, then I think it makes it kind of more powerful from my perspective. So I'm not an expert in Elliott Wave, and he is. I'm a pattern and a intermarket analysis type of trader stroke analyst, and so I like to look at everything. They like to look at everything, and I think keeping things simple really helps. But I think also it's better not to look at other people's stuff, because I also find that, you might have a view on something and then somebody else has the opposite view, and then all of a sudden you're not taking your own, view, because you suddenly feel a little bit like, oh, well, that person disagrees with me, so I'm going to defer my view to them. And when I first went into the city, that's pretty much what happened. I had like a really strong views on things, and then I'd meet the economists and think, well, actually, they must know more than me. And then I'd end up, missing things that I felt would actually happen. And even with other technical analysts who have been doing it longer than me at that time, and they would say the opposite and say, no, I think you're wrong. But now that just makes me more kind of, not stubborn, but I think you've got to get to a point where you trust your own analysis. I don't say listen to me, I say listen to yourself. And so I don't really have that many other people that I look at. I listen to what people say, and like, for example, someone might say something like what's happened today. Like, for example, there's this talk of a $1 million Bitcoin. I might have a look at that. I might look into that person, see whether they've made other trades or other ideas that work very well. But ultimately, I don't really look at anybody else's views. Everything's there in the charts. If the markets are going to go up, if gold's going to break a new high, if Bitcoin's going to start tearing to the upside, if you're following the markets, you'll see it. And adding the reasons for it afterwards can be nice, but but you'll see it in the price action. You won't miss anything if you're following the price action, in my view. So that's the main channel that I watch, the price action.
Great points. Great question. Let's jump over to, I know we
Render
had
token.
Render. Can we look at MELD before that? Just because it's been so long since we covered MELD, and we looked at Render a couple times in the last few weeks.
Sure. What's the code for that?
MELD is MELD.
LD, right, as one would expect. So it's just MELD. I'm going to try that one, see if that works. So that looks like it's not. Is that it?
The right price, but it might not be. Is it updated? Yep, it looks like
it's updated. Yeah. Well, this is
volume that's come in since November.
I know, that's really weird the way it's done that. It's like, it looks like massive volumes with tiny moves. So yeah, the chart looks a bit strange, obviously because of what we just said, sort of aesthetically. But what we're seeing here is a downward trend, and then the market's going sideways. So if we look at what that means, it means that the market is in a consolidation. Consolidation is the first step to a reversal. So if we look at this high and this high, this low and this low, it's trading within this channel. So ultimately, this is what will give us the view as to where it's going to move next. If it breaks through these lows, then unfortunately the extended move is more likely to be a downward trend. Before I could buy this, I'd be looking at a break of this high. Typically all the zeros are there. So it's 2 cents, nearly 3 cents. So through nearly 3 cents would be the buy level. We might get an idea as it rises up, takes out this level here, that it's going to do it. So in other words, the closer it gets drawn like a magnet, and then it should accelerate through. So how it does that and when it does it, or if it ever does it, means a lot, which is why I say got to keep watching the price action in order to pick these things up. But for the moment, for me, it's got to be a wait, because there's not enough evidence that this is actually at a good low. I may be able to be talked into buying some by Jay if he really likes the fundamentals for some reason, but it would just be a position that I would have to not worry about, like put a trade on and forget about it. If it goes to zero, it goes to zero.
Which is always a great approach on some of these lower cap alts. I really like the team behind this project. So I've had them on a couple times, and since before their launch, I've had an eye on them. because the Cardano DeFi space hasn't been really big because Cardano was behind ETH on having smart contract capabilities. And so it's really still in its infancy, the DeFi space on Cardano, but it's coming together. One of the other projects that I also got in contact with before their launch was AADA. Between the team at AADA, they're doing some really creative things. And MELD has an extremely experienced team. Like, I liked Ken, the founder, a lot in talking with him, and he attracts quality people that work for him. And so they had some really novel ideas, because with decentralized finance on Cardano, you can do some things that you can't do in the traditional world. For example, you can get a loan, or their goal is to be able to let you get a loan where you're using Cardano to back it. So say you have $100,000 worth of Cardano, and you're going to back your loan, and you're going to take out that $50,000 of liquidity against that $100,000 that you have. Now, what's interesting is Cardano is an asset that can be staked, and it can earn a return. And so what they can do is take that Cardano, stake it, and earn a return, and give you a bunch of that return on your asset that's backing it. So they use that to come up with the ideas like the Genius loan, which is a loan that pays itself back over time. So you pay back the interest, you pay the interest every month, but it uses that staking return, or a big portion of that staking return, to pay some of the principal back every month. Crazy, amazing, something that's totally doable on an asset-backed loan like this, an asset-backed loan that can earn a staking yield. So pretty innovative. I like to buy at lows. So if you see where it is on the charts, well, it's at some really good lows. Not as cheap as it got back in November, and that's okay. Market cap's at 27 million. It looks like about half the tokens are in circulation, or not quite half, maybe 40%. All right, that's fair. Looks like, yeah, 1.6 of the 4 billion total supply are in circulation now. Okay, yeah, I like the amount of volume that picked up. Yeah, and maybe that volume has increased since it's DeFi. That happened since November. I'm not sure what kicked off that volume increase, but I like MELD a lot, and I really like it at this price. Essentially, when I met them, I was able to look at the pre-sale, and I put about 20K into it, the pre-sale, just figuring it was a long-term hold. The vesting on the pre-sale was absolutely terrible, so I earned some that way. I have since got some more on the market, and I'll probably buy some more at these prices. So thanks, Abe, for bringing it to my attention. I really like it this price. For me, it's definitely a buy, but it's just kind of a buy, and then I kind of forget about it till, especially in a project like MELD. I was actually even an ambassador for them in the early days. I just couldn't keep up with all the other ambassadors, so I felt like there was somebody better who could replace me, that could keep up with all the news happening, because I can't ever keep my eye on just one project. I'm trying to look at like 100 or 200 and keep an eye on what's out there. So I did relinquish my position on that so they could fill it with somebody who was very active in the community, and they have these ambassadors that are super active, super knowledgeable, and great people. So I really like this project. I like where they're at. I like their community a ton. I like the ambassadors that they've attracted to the project. That's a great sign for me. I like everything about MELD that I've seen so far. So for me, this is a definite buy. So yeah, thanks for bringing our attention to it, Abe. Great call. All right, let's take a look at what was the render. Perfect.
Yeah, render. Yeah. Yeah. So just very briefly, this is interesting because it's caught in this triangular constriction. So we saw the first breakout and pullback, but now it's doing exactly what we were saying right at the top of the show with the first chart. It's bouncing into this correction. So it will being painted into a corner, as I like to call it. So we should see a breakout soon. and hopefully that breakout should be to the upside. So I'm waiting for it. I'm waiting for it to go. It's kind of in the middle here, and it's traded nicely technically before. So I don't like to use the word hope, but I hope that it does break out, because, you know, it's quite a nice looking chart. For me, where it goes wrong is if it breaks through this lower line. So I'd put a stop in. I think the most logical stop place would be below this point, because you've got support here at $1.11, and that's acted as support very close to that place as well. So for me, if it breaks $1.11, then it would have broken this lower line. It would have also got below here. So as a short-term trade, that's where I'd be looking to bail. I'm not saying that necessarily that means the long-term would look bad. But yeah, I like the look of this, and you know, hopefully it will break out soon. But technically, it looks due. So the market's got to move one way or the other, and it seems to have consolidated long enough. So looking for a move up. So I would buy it.
Yeah, fantastic suggestion, Mark. Thank you for that. I can see why you want us to review it again today. It's right near a point where it's probably going to break up or break down. Sometimes it just continues sideways from here, but usually it's ready to either break up or break down. Perfect. There's a lot of those that are happening this week. Exciting times. So we'll see. And possibly if they break up, they'll all break up together, or if they break down, they'll break down together.
I mean, what one positive on that is that that's kind of similar to the consolidations that we were seeing in the majors. So when the
majors break up,
and so you know, I think they tip the balance a little bit more towards the bull side. So, you know, a few months back, you know, a good few months back when we were in the bear market, everything was tinged with a extra bit of caution, and, you know, the macro picture being negative. But going back to the question about 2024, I think by then the dollar should be properly going down. I mean, it looks like it's starting to go down now. So if that's the case, I think we can have a generally more bullish view on everything, given that that's probably going to drive a big move into what we call risk on. So in any 50-50 trade, I'm now more bullish than bearish.
Perfect. Well, thank you, Paul, for your insights today. Some great stuff. Thanks for your suggestions of what to look at, because they're right at these decision points.
My pleasure.
Thank you to the audience for joining us. If you haven't made it rain on that like button, it really it would help us a lot if you smash that like. So thank you all. Just know that generally the market, it's uncertain right now. It's definitely uncertain, but good decisions made during these crazy and uncertain times, they lead to life-changing ones if you're patient and you wait till the money does come into the market, till it seems like everything's going up, and then you take some profits at that point. This wrap is for all of you to reinforce the principles that I share that make all the difference in making higher returns over time. Thank you, everyone.
To the space, chasing all of the gains, chasing the pumps and all of the hype trains. But like in life, shit right before you could. Was told to buy when it was pouring like a rainmaker should. I buy when it's down, don't chase the boats that I miss. Cause I always make the time in mind. I stick the one out cause I'm patient like that, and I'll wait for the right time. I sell when it's high, I buy when it's low. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm just a rainmaker running the show. Calculated investments, I don't leave with my heart. Principles are simple, they're leaving a mark. Why when it's boring, just gotta be smart. I sell when it's hype, like all the channels they pump it. That's when I was selling, got parabolic and dump it. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Makes the time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love, and I follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Time is never better, but time like the present. This next 5 years is a gift and it's feeling like heaven. I'm committed to learn, studying to know that nothing comes easy, but with knowledge the game show. Sticking out this road cause soon will come a bear market. Learning and growing, and when it's slow will be the target. They say it's come out, Bitcoin is dead. The massive decreases can get to your head. sticking around, the time is better. Strong like that, I'll let the others be fretters. 2 years time, the ball will bring back the gains. That makes it worth the effort, cause here comes the rain. So let's go rainmakers, let's make it all happen. Let go of the hate, let the haters be crapping. I'm here for 5 years, let's do this together. The time is right, the time could be better. They call me rich, they call me smart. I'm a rainmaker, making my own start. I'm with the future, learning the past. Making time fly by, years going so fast. The game plan is mine, I'll own it now. When I reach the top, haters asking me how. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I'll follow what I learn, not relying on luck. Haters be hating, the time to slow down. Addressing what they say when I'm wearing my crown. They're chasing green candles like someone who was new. I got a vision that was bigger, helping me to push through. I'm still human and sometimes it is rough, and that's what makes me special, simply I stay tough. Cause I'm a rainmaker, investments I love. And I follow what I learn, not relying on luck.